And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to be taking a look at a word game. And no, it's not Scrabble, not the classic word game. We're going to take a look at Word on the Street, which has a much more party feel than your typical word game, in that it plays anywhere from 2 to 10 players, and you're going to be able to play on teams, and you're going to have some nice discussion, maybe some laughing, some interesting concepts coming up throughout the game, in order to try and find a word that everyone agrees on, in order to take letters for your team and win the game. So real quick, why don't we take a look at what you get inside this box, which isn't too much. We'll take a look at how it plays, which is really kind of fun, and then we'll come back here and we'll get my final thoughts on it. So here you can see the contents of Word on the Street. We have this board which has a center row and then 2 lanes on each side, and then we have a bunch of lettered tiles. You're missing all of the vowels here, and you're missing Z, X, Q, and J. So all of the 10-point Scrabble letters are not present here, but you have the majority of the alphabet. The idea of this game is that you're trying to capture these letters, and you're going to capture them by moving them from one side to the other. So one team would be over here, or one player, and the other team would be on this side of the street, trying to capture letters, trying to be the first to capture 8 letters. And you're going to do so by naming words. And the words you name are going to try and match the categories on these cards. So your opposing team would draw a card and read it to you. For example, let's say the team on my left here draws a card, and it says, name a film genre. Well, the other team is now going to try and come up with a word which matches this and has letters in it, which is going to allow them to move letters towards their side of the board. The trick is that there's a timer, so you're going to flip this timer over, and the team has that much time to come up with one word. They have to agree on the word, and they're going to give you that word once they've decided on it. So, for example, let's say they came up with the film genre horror, which is actually pretty good for this situation. So they're going to go and they're going to spell out horror, moving each letter once for each time it occurs in that word. So in this case we have H, which would move once. Then we have O, which isn't on the board, R twice, O again, and then another R, which brings R off the board in one turn. So that puts them 1/8 of the way towards winning the game. And that would really be it for their turn. And now the other team's going to get a chance to go. You'd put this card in the back, and the next team is going to get a chance to go. So we're going to pull it one, and we're going to have here something that comes in a roll or on a roll. And you only get one word, so it can't be toilet paper. That's 2 words. It has to be a 1-word answer. So you'd flip this over, and you're going to try and come up with something that comes on a roll. So maybe you just use the word tissue. Tissue comes on a roll. It's another word for toilet paper. So let's say they come up with tissue. We would move T, then an I. There aren't any vowels. S twice. UE. Well, not a great word. It doesn't move anything off the board, but you can see that this S is most of the way towards the team on my left. Continuing on, you'd move to the next one, and there are 2 sides to these cards, so you can flip them over if you run out of cards, but we have something that emits heat. Great. The first thing that the other team is probably going to want to do is move this S back towards the center so that this team doesn't have a chance to get it later. So they want to come up with something that emits heat. Yeah, it's not always that easy on the top of your head. So something that emits heat. Let's go with a radiator. That doesn't get them S, but they would move R, which is already off the board. Good example here. Then they would move D, T, and they'd try and move R again. Well, they didn't get that S over, but the T is back. And you're going to continue on in this manner until one team manages to get 8 of these tiles. Once one team gets 8 of the tiles, that's the end of the game, and that team are the winning players. And that's Word on the Street. Pretty simple, but it's a great deal of fun, surprisingly so. So you don't usually think word games. That's something I'm really going to have a blast at. But Word on the Street manages to pull it off because of the creativity needed and the limited scope of what you can choose to answer with. Now, this is a game that can be played by any number of people, really. 2 to 10 is just a general suggestion. If you have 2 teams, you can split it up to 2 even teams of any amount of people, and can be played by any age. Anything, from a young kid who just is getting to know their words to an older adult who is, well-versed in the English language. You often have a good time joking around with your other teammates about words that aren't really words that would be great for moving pieces along the board. I think the first one we ever came up with, which would win us the game, was waffle hay. Not a word, but would have been great at the time, needing the W, the F, the L, and the H. But if you think this sounds interesting to you, you can check it out. Word on the Street by Out of the Box Games.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.